Good afternoon. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Pagani design PD-1679M. This watch is available on AliExpress from Pagani Design Ali Global Store for €107. So firstly, let's look at the box that the watch comes in, and then I'll talk you through the other items one gets with the piece. So this watch comes in a premium Pagani design watch box, and I think they deserve full credit for making a good quality watch box, bearing in mind that this is a low tier price point piece at only €107. It's definitely an improvement over the standard matte black cardboard watch box that Pagani design watches often come in. So it's a clear indication of the positive direction that the brand's taking, and I would like to see them use this watch box in other models across the range. The watch itself sits on this padded pillow cushion, which is Rolex style, and I think it's very nicely executed. The finishing of the interior is done to a good standard, and I think it's a very nice presentable watch box. With regards to the other items, this is the owner's instruction manual. The user's manual is basic, but it does have some diagrams, and also the instructions are in English. It is a useful read if you're unfamiliar with the movement used in the piece, which is the Seiko NH35A automatic. It details the hand winding and hacking functions, and also the date complication setting and the time setting. So a useful read if you're unfamiliar with the movement. This is the plastic guarantee card, and I'm pleased to report that the watch is covered by a 12-month international guarantee, which is very reassuring. One also gets this plastic tag which has Pagani Design Top Waterproof embossed on it, and I always think it's a nice touch to get a tag with a watch, irrespective of the price point of the piece. And lastly, one also gets this branded microfiber polishing cloth, and again I think it's a nice touch to get that included. So, with regards to the specifications of the piece, the PD-1679M is clearly an homage to the Omega Seamaster Planet Ocean, and it does that very well. It copies the look of the case of the Planet Ocean and also the bezel insert. With regards to the dimensions, it's 42mm case diameter, it has a 48.8mm lug-to-lug measurement, and the thickness is 16mm, including the double dome sapphire crystal. The lug width is 20mm, and the 20mm strap does balance the 42mm head of the piece well. Very similar proportions to the Omega Planet Ocean in 43mm, and I think that 42mm by 16mm is the correct proportions with a 20mm strap. But having said that, 16mm does make it a very tall piece, and that's something you might want to bear in mind, because if you're intending to wear this as a daily wear piece, 16mm is going to be difficult to slip underneath a shirt cuff if you wear business shirts. With regards to the strap, it's a 20mm strap which does taper slightly down to the 2-button push deployant clasp. Now I want to give criticism to the strap. It's cheap quality. The resin strap has a nylon woven fabric stitched through it. Now the quality of the stitching and the fabric is done to an acceptable standard, but however the strap feels very stiff, because unlike silicone rubber or alternatively vulcanized rubber, which would be more expensive options, they've opted to use resin, which has a plastic feel. It feels exactly the same as a Casio digital watch strap, the kind of strap one would get on a €10 Casio F91W, which I'm sure you're familiar with. And it's got that very stiff resin strap feel, plasticky, rather than a nice supple silicone rubber feel or vulcanized rubber feel. So clear cost-cutting measure, and very disappointing, bearing in mind that this is a €107 piece. Now with regards to the 2-button push deployant, it's mirror polished throughout. It is finished to an acceptable standard. We have a signed Pagani Design emblem, and the 2-button push trigger action of the deployant does work well. Mirror polished throughout to an acceptable standard. Now with regards to the deployant clasp, personally, I think deployant clasps work better on daily wear pieces or dress pieces. I think for dive pieces, they really should have either a flip block clasp or alternatively a buckle and tang. Now, I can understand why Pagani Design have elected to use a deployant, because they're trying to give the impression of it being a more luxury version, but I really think that the buckle and tang would have been more appropriate. With regards to deployant clasps, I will explain their history. The deployant clasp was first invented by Cartier, and the word deployant comes from the French word displiquer. Displiquer in French means to fold, i.e. to fold the two ends of a watch strap together. So displiquer, the English translation, is deployant, and that's where it comes from. Cartier invented the deployant clasp. So really I would prefer to see a buckle and tang, or alternatively a flip block clasp, but however that's the clasp we have. Now with regards to the finishing, I have to give credit to Pagani Design. The brushed satin finish to the flanks of the case are finished on both flanks to a high standard. Absolutely flawless finishing to the 316L grade stainless steel. Nice large bevel machined to the top side of the lugs, and that carries all the way through the flank of the case, and it marks the transition between the top of the lug, which is brushed satin finish, and the brushed satin finish flanks. They've done a very good job of copying the Omega Planetocean case, exactly the same profiles to the lugs, and really that large mirror polished bevel throughout the case is polished to a flawless standard. Very good quality case finishing, no flaws whatsoever, and it's got a nice luster to the brushed satin finish to the flanks on both sides, so I like it. Now with regards to the crown, solid stainless steel, and it has a knurled finish. The crown is signed with a Pagani Design brand emblem in a mirror polished finish, which contrasts with a bead blasted background. Crown execution is excellent, and as I've discussed in previous reviews, it's something I really like about Pagani Design watches. Silky smooth crown action, absolute pleasure to unscrew the crown from the crown tube. Pleasure to manually wind it. One can feel the tension gradually build up in the mainspring of the Seiko NH35A to manually wind it to its maximum 40-hour power reserve. 2 positive clicks on the crown. The first click is for setting the date complication, which is at 6 o'clock, and the second click is to set the time. And it does work very well. So it's a really well executed crown. Silky smooth, no problems with the thread pickup whatsoever. I can screw it back down, and the internal thread of the crown and the external thread of the crown tube interface very nicely. Now it also has a helium escape valve, which I personally think would look better if it was deleted. Really there's no need to have a helium escape valve on a watch which only has 100 meters of water resistance, but however it does actually work. One can unscrew the helium escape valve and one can screw it back down again, silky smooth thread to it, and really it doesn't serve any meaningful purpose because in reality a saturation diver isn't going to use a 100 meter water resistant piece like this. Commercial divers use dive computers these days. They don't use dive pieces with bezels to time their dives, but however they've clearly copied the Planetocean's helium escape valve to give the impression of a Planetocean, but some collectors might like it. They might think it follows the design of the Planetocean and therefore it's an accurate homage to it. I think it would look better without it. It's subjective. Some people will dislike it, some people will like it. I personally dislike it. I dislike the red ring on the crown. Again, I think that would look better if it was deleted. I would prefer to see a coin edge finish or knurled crown, but I appreciate that Pagani Design are trying to make an homage to the Planetocean rather than a direct one-to-one clone of it. Now, with regards to the dial layout, I think they've made the correct decision by citing the date complication at 6 o'clock. The white date wheel contrasts beautifully with the black dial. The black dial has a matte finish to it, and the applied indices, although they are silver and highly reflective, they are clearly legible. The lack of AR coating on the underside of the sapphire crystal is noticeable, and it is a major negative because, as you can see, when I tilt the piece in the light, it is very glossy, highly reflective, and therefore in direct sunlight or bright light it does make the dial and hands more difficult to read. So really it would benefit from the use of AR coating. One thing I really dislike about the watch is the hands. They're a contradiction. For the hour hand we have a Seiko style hand. For the minute hand we have an Omega Planetocean style arrow hand, which does fit the design of the watch, bearing in mind that it is an homage to the Planetocean. I'd prefer to see either arrow hands or alternatively sword hands used rather than the Seiko hour hand. The Seiko hour hand really doesn't fit the aesthetic of an Omega Planetocean homage. So I think they should change the hands. The contrasting blue second hand is fine, and I think it does add interest to the hand. So nothing wrong with having a contrasting second hand, but really the hour hand looks out of place. Now, with regards to the execution of the case back, I'll show you that. It's a screw down exhibition case back made from stainless steel. It provides an effective hermetic seal to 100 meters. The center section is glazed with mineral crystal and it is finished to a flawless finish. The circumference of the screw down case back is mirror polished, which contrasts with the brushed concentric satin finish to the underside of the case. Very nicely executed screw down case back, and although the Seiko NH35A is undecorated, it is nice to see it displayed. So I really like it. I think that screw down exhibition case backs are something that Pagani Design do very well. So I'll give you a wrist shot and you can see how it fits on my 8-inch wrist. Now, with the deployant clasp and the resin strap, it is a very tight fit on my 8-inch wrist, but I can get it over my hand, and I want to show it to you on the wrist, so I'll have to take off my glove to do that. But however, I'm pleased to report that with the deployant clasp in the last hole in the strap, it does indeed fit my 8-inch wrist, so that's very good. If you're a collector with a larger wrist of 7 to 8 inches, this strap and deployant will fit your wrist, no problems whatsoever. But however, it is a very tall piece at 16mm, including the double dome sapphire crystal. As you can see, it stands very tall and proud on the wrist. The exhibition case back also adds to the thickness, and as you can see, even though there is a curved profile to the underside of the case, and the case does wrap around the wrist very well, there is a gap underneath the case, as you can see, and really it is a very tall piece which does wear with wrist presence for a 42mm, as one would expect. I think it would have looked better without the helium escape valve, because that would slim down the case. It really does stick out from the left hand flank of the case at the 10 o'clock position, so I think that really spoils it. But having said that, it is an aesthetically pleasing case design, and the curved taper to the lugs does taper nicely down to the 20mm strap. So apart from the lack of AR coating making the double dome sapphire crystal highly reflective, it is an aesthetically pleasing piece to look at, and I like the execution of the Planet Ocean style bezel. The ceramic is finished to a very high standard, so they've done a good job with the bezel and also the bezel insert. Right, so let's do a Lume test and we'll see how the Lume performs when it's charged up to its absolute maximum. So just bear with me, and I'm going to put my left hand glove back on, and then we'll do a Lume test and we'll see how this performs. Right, so as always, I'm going to charge up the Lume to its absolute peak using my 100 UV LED torch. Now, I haven't got high expectations of the Luminova because this is a low tier piece costing only €107, but we'll test it out nonetheless. Right, so it's immediately disappointing that they have done the same thing as with the Black Bay Homage. They've used a mismatch colour of the Lume. We have C3 Luminova on the applied indices and the Lume pip on the bezel, and we have blue Luminova on the hands, and I really think that there is no excuse for using different coloured Lume on the dial and hands regardless of the price point. But having said that, the C3 Luminova and the blue Lume used on the hands is performing to a good standard. It is glowing brightly and it is continuing to glow for a reasonable length of time. So I would say Pagani Design have improved the quality of the Luminova they're using. It is better performance, but however, I don't know why they've used two different colours. They should have either used blue Lume on the indices or alternatively green Lume on the hands, but not both. So this is something they really need to correct, both on the Black Bay, the PD-1679M, which I previously reviewed, and also on this piece, the PD-1679M. So that is a criticism, but it is continuing to glow for a good length of time, so I would say the Lume does perform well, but bear in mind you're going to have to put up with a mismatch in the colours of the applied indices and also the hands. Now, with regards to the specifications of the movement, it uses the Seiko NH35A, which is made in Japan, 24 joules. It has hand winding and hacking, which are useful complications, and it runs at 21,600 vibrations per hour and a frequency of 3 Hz. So it's a good, reliable, well-proven workhorse movement with 24 joules, and it has a 40-hour power reserve, which is perfectly acceptable. The stated accuracy of the NH35A is -20 to +40 seconds per day, so a rather wide accuracy range, but however I'm pleased to report that this one is running at +8 seconds per day consistently when it's fully wound to its 40-hour power reserve. So to get +8 seconds per day consistently from a piece that only costs €107 is very impressive. And it shows that Pagani Design are getting well-regulated movements from Seiko, and that's something I think they deserve credit for. The calibration of their movements is very good. So lastly, I'll surmise the piece. What do I think of it overall? Well, when I'm considering reviewing a watch on my channel, the watch should meet two criteria. It should be both excellent quality and excellent value at the respective price point. So the respective price point of this watch is €107. So to make a decision on this, we're going to do a bezel check. Now, the negative of this bezel is there is lateral side-to-side play, which is very disappointing. It's a 120 click unidirectional bezel, as one would expect. The bezel action feels even all the way through the 120 clicks when one rotates it through the full rotation, so I've got no criticisms with regards to the feeling of the bezel action. The 120 clicks do feel even and they do feel positive. Nice, pleasant, loud clicking sound, which is good. But however, there's lateral side-to-side play and we also have some back play. And I think it's disappointing because, as we've seen on the PD-1679, they are capable of producing well executed bezel action with minimal lateral side-to-side play and minimal back play. This isn't one of their better bezel actions. Now I'm going to show you something else. The Lume pip and triangle on the ceramic bezel insert doesn't align correctly with the 12 o'clock index on the dial. Regardless of which click you use, it's either slightly to the left or slightly to the right when one cycles through the 120 clicks. I've tried it a few rotations and I can't get the Lume pip and triangle on the ceramic bezel insert to perfectly align at 12 o'clock. Slightly to the left or slightly to the right each time. Now one can easily rectify that by heating up the ceramic bezel insert using a hairdryer, and that melts the adhesive ring underneath the ceramic, and then one can rotate the ceramic bezel clockwise or anti-clockwise slightly to better align the ceramic bezel insert. So it is possible to rectify that oneself, but however one shouldn't have to do that on a brand new piece. The bezel should be perfectly aligned with the 12 o'clock index on the dial, so that's disappointing. Poor bezel action, lateral side-to-side play, back play, and we have incorrect alignment. So that's something I want you to bear in mind if considering purchasing this piece. So I'm going to make a decision on this. I'm going to say it is okay value and I'm going to say it is okay quality, bearing in mind it's €107. Yes, the premium watch box is good, and overall the quality of the finishing is good on the case. The execution of the bezel is good in terms of its finishing, and also the execution of the screw down case back. So it's a well finished piece. The build quality is good, the quality control is good, with the exception of the bezel quality control is poor. Really, they should have aligned the bezel correctly and they should have improved the bezel action. So for those reasons, those shortcomings, I can't declare it excellent and I can't declare it good. I think it's okay. Lastly, I will say the mismatch in colour tone of the Lume on the dial and applied indices is another disappointment. So these are negatives you really need to consider, and these are the kind of things that make it okay quality and okay value. So I'm going to recommend it to you for your consideration, but bear in mind those shortcomings. I hope you've enjoyed my review of the Pagani design PD-1679M. Please feel free to post your own comments below the video. Thank you very much.